As Ben tracked through the wilderness, he couldn't believe his luck when he spotted the enormous bear. His first instinct as a hunter was to reach for his rifle. With a pelt that size, he'd make a small fortune. Yet something gave him pause. Instead of taking the shot, he found himself loading a tranquilizer dart into his gun. Hours later, he was at Dr. Miller's clinic, not the most reputable veterinary practice in the area, but one known for its discretion at the right price. Ben watched anxiously as the vet ran the ultrasound probe across the sedated bear's massive frame. What happened next caught him completely off guard. The vet immediately reached for his phone and called the police. Rage coursed through Ben's veins. This wasn't part of the plan. He'd specifically chosen this shady clinic because Miller was supposed to keep quiet. His fists clenched as he contemplated silencing the vet permanently, but Miller quickly raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Wait," the vet said. "I'm not calling about you. You need to see this." Miller pointed to the ultrasound screen, explaining that the bear's extraordinary size wasn't natural. He'd never seen anything like it in his decades of practice, and this discovery required immediate police attention. When the officers arrived, they barely glanced at Ben or questioned how he'd brought in a tranquilized bear. Their focus was entirely on the ultrasound images Miller showed them. As Ben watched their reactions, he realized he'd stumbled onto something far bigger than an illegal hunting operation. Whatever that bear was carrying inside it had the entire police force on high alert. The black bear stood like a monument against the forest backdrop, its size defying everything Ben knew about the species. In his 20 years of hunting, he'd never seen anything like it. His finger rested on the trigger out of habit, but something stayed his hand. The bear's massive frame spoke of something beyond normal growth, beyond nature's usual boundaries. Even from his concealed position, Ben could tell this wasn't a pregnant female. The bear was distinctly male, yet its proportions seemed impossible, as if it belonged to another era entirely. Instead of taking the shot, Ben found himself lowering his rifle, curiosity overtaking his hunter's instinct. The bear moved with surprising grace for its size, and Ben followed at a cautious distance. Though he was certain the creature knew he was there, it showed no signs of concern. As he tracked the animal, Ben's mind shifted from wonder to opportunity. Rare specimens like this could fetch a hefty price from the right buyers, but he'd need help to capture something this size. Keeping one eye on the bear, Ben pulled out his phone and initiated a group call with his most trusted hunting companions. Within minutes, they had devised a plan. 3 of them would bring a reinforced truck and tranquilizer equipment, enough firepower to sedate any normal bear. Fortune seemed to favor them when the bear settled near a small cave entrance. Ben's friends arrived an hour later, equipped with everything they needed. The bear dozed peacefully, making it an easy target. They took their shots, 3 tranquilizer darts enough to drop an elephant. That's when everything went wrong. Instead of succumbing to the sedatives, the bear's eyes snapped open, blazing with fury. It rose to its full height, dwarfing the hunters, and charged. The group scattered, but the bear had eyes only for Ben. In a panic, he spotted a tall oak and scrambled up its trunk, his heart threatening to burst from his chest. From his perch, Ben watched the massive creature circle below, its movements deliberate and intelligent. The forest fell silent except for the sound of his own ragged breathing and the bear's heavy footfalls. His friends had retreated to the safety of their truck, leaving him alone in this standoff. Minutes stretched like hours as Ben's muscles screamed from maintaining his grip. The bear maintained its vigil, showing no signs of losing interest. Then, as suddenly as it had charged, the creature turned away, disappearing into the dense forest with surprising stealth for its size. Ben waited until the forest sounds returned before attempting his descent. Each movement was calculated, his ears straining for any sign of the bear's return. When his boots finally touched the ground, he made his way to the truck with careful, measured steps. His friends greeted him with wide eyes and pale faces. "What just happened?" asked Mike, his voice barely above a whisper. Ben slumped against the truck's hood, his legs still shaky. "I don't know," he admitted. "But those tranquilizers should have worked. That wasn't normal." The group exchanged uneasy glances, knowing they'd encountered something beyond their understanding. Whatever that bear was, it had shaken their confidence and left them with more questions than answers. The silence broke when Mike spoke up, his voice firm with resolve. "We can't walk away from this." The group huddled around their maps, each suggesting strategies, until Ben interrupted with an unexpected proposal. "What if we take it alive?" His words hung in the air, surprising even himself. The morning's encounter had changed something in him. Where he once saw only profit, he now recognized majesty. The bear wasn't just a prize to be claimed, it was a marvel of nature deserving of care. The team quickly adapted to this new approach, their hunter's mindset shifting to one of conservation. A few calls later, they had secured more powerful tranquilizers, each dart representing a delicate balance between effectiveness and safety. Ben meticulously outlined their revised plan, emphasizing the importance of precision and speed. "Remember," he cautioned, drawing lines across the map, "we move like shadows, quick and quiet." They mapped every detail: approach vectors, backup positions, and escape routes. When everything was in place, they moved through the forest with practiced stealth, their boots barely whispering against the ground. The bear lay ahead, peaceful and unaware. Ben raised his hand, signaling for absolute stillness. The tranquilizer gun felt heavier than his usual rifle. This wasn't about taking a life, but preserving one. He steadied his breathing, took aim, and squeezed the trigger. The dart found its mark. Time seemed to slow as they watched from their positions, monitoring the bear's reaction. Gradually, the massive creature's movements became sluggish, then still. Success brought not triumph, but a solemn sense of responsibility. Moving the sleeping giant proved to be their next challenge. They gathered around the bear, marveling at its size before beginning the arduous task of transport. "Easy does it," Ben directed as they strained under the enormous weight. Through collective effort and determination, they managed to load their cargo into the truck, carefully concealing it under a heavy tarp. The drive to the veterinarian's clinic was tense, each bump in the road causing Ben to check the rearview mirror. They'd chosen this particular vet for his discretion and remote location. When they arrived, the grizzled veterinarian's eyes widened at the sight of their unconscious passenger. "In all my years," he muttered, helping them move the bear into his examination room. The ultrasound procedure began in tense silence, broken only by the quiet hum of equipment. Suddenly, the vet's hands froze over the bear's abdomen, his expression shifting from professional interest to disbelief. "This isn't right," he said, studying the screen intently. Without explanation, he stepped away from the bear and reached for his phone. "I need to contact someone about this." Ben started to protest, but the vet cut him off. "The authorities need to know about this," he insisted, already dialing. The word authorities sent a chill through the room, but something in the vet's tone suggested their legal status wasn't his primary concern. Whatever he'd found inside that bear transcended questions of hunting permits and regulations. The team exchanged worried glances as they waited, the bear's steady breathing the only sound in the suddenly cramped examination room. Whatever came next, they knew their morning hunting trip had evolved into something far more significant than they could have imagined. Police sirens pierced the clinic's quiet. Ben's chest tightened as officers filed in, but their focus immediately shifted to the sedated bear. "We're here about the animal," the lead officer stated, barely acknowledging the hunters. The room crowded around the ultrasound screen. The vet pointed to something strange, causing the officers to lean in closer. After a brief consultation, the decision was made. They needed to operate. Time crawled as the vet worked, his movements precise and deliberate. When he finally extracted the foreign object, the room fell silent. In his hands lay a camera, its presence raising more questions than answers. "This explains the bear's size," the vet mused, examining the device. The officers exchanged meaningful glances. This was clearly more than a simple wildlife incident. Ben watched as they carefully bagged the camera, wondering what secrets it might hold and who had put it there. The bear's steady breathing filled the silence as everyone processed the implications. This peaceful giant had been carrying something that was never meant to be found. Ben felt a strange mix of relief and concern, knowing their unorthodox hunting trip had uncovered something far more significant than anyone could have anticipated. In the aftermath, Ben and his friends watched the sedated bear breathe steadily in the back of their truck. What had started as a hunt for profit had evolved into something profound. The camera's discovery had changed everything, including them. The drive back to the forest was silent, each lost in their thoughts. They'd entered these woods as hunters, but would leave as something else. At the release site, they waited until the bear showed signs of waking, then stepped back to give it space. The massive creature rose slowly, shook itself, and moved toward the trees. Ben watched it disappear into the forest, knowing he'd never see it the same way again. Some mysteries, he realized, were better left to the wild. The bear vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a group of changed men and an unsolved mystery about who had placed that camera and why.